This happened a while back, when I was still a junior in college. After becoming an upperclassman, students on campus didn't have to live in a dorm room or in a sorority or fraternity house anymore if they didn't want to, because they were given the option to rent an actual apartment at the college. That's exactly what I did the first chance I got. The apartments were nice, swell appliances, my personal favorite being the handy dandy microwave oven. A lot more space than a dorm, and more privacy. The particular apartment assigned to me was 2 stories instead of 1, like some of the others. The ones with only 1 floor were pretty big in diameter, mine was more narrow. It was great, and I kind of felt like more of an adult because I had house keys. Anywho, I had quite a bit of classes, clubs, sports, and other miscellaneous activities during the day, so I wasn't home a lot during the week. But on weekends, I basically had the whole place to myself, unless I had a not very rare cross-country meet or art show 2 states away. My roommate, Sydney, was a total insomniac though, so she'd do her thing during the day, and usually went on walks or out with friends at night. She'd often come back late or early, depends on how you look at it, at like 4 in the morning. I honestly had no freaking clue when she ever slept. Our apartment was usually empty or occupying one sleepy person. We got robbed a lot. Like, a lot. Super often. Probably twice a month. I complained a bunch to the administrators, but they couldn't really do anything, and in the back of my mind, I kind of knew that. The front door's lock wasn't broken, the window had locks, the robberies just happened. They'd pick the lock, or find an open window on a hot day, even if it was on the 2nd story, and steal our crappy 1990s television set, or even our microwave oven. Clearly, they were running out of things to take. We were college students. We didn't have too many valuables. I mainly complained because it wasn't really the ideal situation, but I'd never woken up to see anything stolen, and Sid never woke up because she was always awake, so the majority of the robberies were in broad daylight when I was at class, which was a little strange, or sometimes when I came back from 4-day road trips. It wasn't so unnerving because no one ever broke in when I was sleeping, but it was still annoying. Looking back on it now, it was weird how the robberies took place at really precise times, like when Sid went home for the weekend and I was in Missouri for a fundraiser, or while I was at a night class and my roommates were at a friend's. It was quite clear whoever was breaking in and stealing our shit knew our schedule to some extent because there was never an incident while either of us were there. But even so, I still should have gotten out of there. Sydney was at a concert, and I didn't expect her to be home until the horizon started to brighten. I was going to go to a haunted house with some buddies for Halloween, something the college was putting on to raise money for nicer books and maybe better locks on the doors. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But my friend Sarah bailed last minute, presumably to go fuck someone, and her cousin Matt had gotten himself sick, so we rescheduled pretty late into the night. I wasn't feeling so great either though, so I wasn't too bummed, and took to curling up on my sofa and watching Slumdog Millionaire. I ended up falling asleep there on the 1st floor, and awoke a few hours later when Satan was literally scraping out my uterus with a rusty knife. I retrieved some Tylenol from the bathroom and filled a glass in the kitchen. Downing the pills, I turned to go upstairs to my bedroom when I noticed my roommate standing by the fridge. I was half asleep and in pain, so I tried to say something like, "I thought you'd be home later." But it came out more like, "I thought, what?" And I gave up. Sid didn't say anything though. She just stood there, barely moving or breathing. "You okay?" I asked, sounding almost like a regular human being again, but she didn't react in any way. I shrugged and pushed past her to get to the fridge, suddenly very hungry. I took out an apple and munched on it, still chatting with her, asking how the concert was. A few times I thought I saw her nod, but it was dark and I couldn't make out her face. Okay, well, night I guess. She was still stiff as a board, unwavering as I headed up the stairs and into my room. The next morning, I woke up around noon because why not? I grabbed a bowl of cereal. Sitting down at the table, I noticed the kitchen looked different and, upon further inspection, realized our second microwave oven was missing. What the fuck? Was my first response, and after briefly talking to myself, my phone rang, scaring the absolute living shit out of me.
Hey.
Came Sydney's voice through the line.
Sorry, I know I said I'd be home last night, but I got caught up and lost track of time. I have class in an hour. Can you come pick me up?
Guys, I talked to my microwave oven thief for like 30 minutes, thinking it was my roommate. This happened to me when I was 14. On this day, I had just gotten home from school. My brother didn't ride the bus home that day, and both of my parents were still at work, so I was home alone. I think I had been home for about 45 minutes at the most. I remember that I was watching TV and I got up to get a snack. When I was walking back to my couch to sit down, I looked out my window only to see a man standing outside in front of the mailboxes that were at the bottom of my driveway, and he was looking into my house with binoculars. At the very least, you could say that I was scared shitless because why the fuck would someone be looking into my house with binoculars? Once I saw the guy, I ducked under the window, hoping to God that he hadn't noticed that I saw him. I crawled over to the phone and proceeded to call my brother. When he answered, I started crying into the phone, asking him where he was and how long it would be until he got home. My brother, of course, was really concerned and asked me what was wrong, and I told him what was happening. My brother was furious and told me he'd be home as fast as he can. Unfortunately, my brother said he had just left the school, and the walk from my high school to my house is about half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on how fast you're walking. Of course, I was very thankful to have my two protective dogs with me. They're both pit bulls, so to all of those out there who own pit bulls, you know how protective they are. They'll take a life if they need to. After I hung up with my brother, I decided to watch the guy for a good 2 to 3 minutes. Now, you might think, why didn't you call the cops? Well, for the simple fact that this man isn't actually causing any harm to me, so I can't just call up the police station and say that a man is looking into my house with binoculars because they can't do anything. And also, I'm not the type to call the cops unless I feel that my life is actually in danger. Out of some sort of luck or something, the guy didn't actually try to do anything. He just walked off like nothing had happened. Now, some of you might think that this story wasn't actually that scary, but if you were a 14-year-old girl and you were home alone, and some guy was looking into your house with binoculars, you might be a little scared yourself. What made it so scary for me was that I really didn't know what this guy's intentions were. Was he seeing if someone was home? Was he going to try to break in and rob us? I really don't know, and honestly, I don't know why anybody would try to rob our house anyways, because if you knew what my house looked like, it wasn't the type of house that a person would want to rob. Nothing really made any sense. I'm just glad that nothing happened to me and that I haven't seen this man again since. I'm a girl, and at the time of this story, I was around 6 or 7 in the early 2000s. Growing up, my family all lived very close together, or actually together in one house. My aunt and 2 cousins lived with my grandparents about a mile away from me. Both my parents worked, so I spent most days there as my aunt also ran a daycare. One of my cousins, Emily, was with me in our game room playing Nintendo, Duck Hunter if I remember correctly. All the other kids had gone home, and my mom was expected to pick me up soon. Some other backstory, our family had a mechanic/handyman, Steve, since before I can remember, and they still use him today. even though he's a total crook and never completely fixes anything, he's more duct tape than anything. Anyway, while we were playing games, the landline rings, and Emily answers it, as she was the older kid, at 10. She asks who it was, but she didn't tell me what they said. Then, they must have asked who was with her because she said I was, and for some reason gave my age. The man on the line said hello, and I said hi back. He asked if I knew who he was, and I replied, "You sound like Steve." Steve was always hanging around the house just waiting for things to break so he could get paid to fix them. Steve said I was right. He told me to go to the bathroom and lock myself inside. Being a stupid 6-year-old and believing I was talking to an adult I knew, I did it. What comes next is still a bit of a blur. My mom had arrived right when I went into the bathroom and found out what I was doing from Emily. Steve told me to unlock the window that was above the toilet. I saw a shadow through the distorted glass. My mom pounds on the door, yelling, and the shadow disappears, and a trash can under the window outside falls over. I let my mom in and wonder what all the fuss was about. When I remembered this story years later and asked my mom about it, she told me that Steve never called and that there were several kidnappings of little girls in towns around the same time as this incident. This happened a couple of hours ago, and since I'm too on edge to sleep, I thought I'd post this while it's fresh in my mind. I have a 16-week-old German Shepherd puppy, and I just collected her from my parents' house since I don't want to leave her home alone all day when I'm at work. I'd gotten into my pajamas, and I was playing some silly game on my phone when I heard a knocking sound on the garage door. My house is really small, and you can pretty much hear every noise in the house, so this didn't really bother me too much. We don't have a direct back entrance to the house. You have to go through the garage. My dog went to have a sniff around the back door and came back to the living room shortly after. I just thought, being how young she is, she's scared of missing something. A couple of minutes later, I heard a tapping noise from the window of my front door. This spooked me as my dog went crazy with her barking, but because I was home alone, I didn't answer it, as it's about 8 p.m. and pitch black outside. I'm concerned, but not overly afraid, as it could have been anyone or anything, innocently enough. Then, I heard the very distinct sound of someone turning a key in the door. I'm not sure if they were turning a key or another metal object, or trying to push my keys out. I've never felt this way before, but I suddenly felt ice cold and red hot at the same time. I froze on the sofa and, like an absolute idiot, texted my mom telling her someone was trying to get into the house. I know I should have called the police, but I didn't want to make a sound. If I had, then maybe I'd have scared them, but I don't know. They definitely would have heard my dog before, who was now listening intently. She must have thought it was my boyfriend, who is currently working in London, about 3 hours away. I gather after this that they gave up and left, as it's not that late and there are people in cars nearby, though it's still a quiet street. My dad came round and checked everything, but we didn't see anything. We think they may have been checking the place out and seeing if we lock up after ourselves, or looking in to see what valuables we have. I just think they may have seen a lone girl enter her home with just a puppy, or, what I think to be more likely, saw my puppy and may have been trying to take her. They may have been seeing if I lock the door right after I get in, which I always do, or if I only do it when I leave or go to bed. A couple of hours later, I decided I should call and report it to the police because I couldn't shake that they would pick on someone more vulnerable, being unsuccessful with me. I don't know if it was someone just messing around, but it left me shaking and standing there with a hammer in my hand, waiting for someone to come through my living room door. There have been a lot of reports of people marking properties to signal whether they are easy to burgle or have a dog. Nothing has been found, but I will check again in the morning when it's brighter. I'm shaking just thinking about it. A little bit of background. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I just moved to a small town from a big city with my dad. We moved into our house in early October of 2015, and we were having problems with a leaky shower in the bathroom adjacent to mine, so my dad called the plumber to come take a look. The plumber arrived around 8 a.m. the following day, while I was getting ready for work in my bathroom. My dad let him in, so I hadn't gotten a good look at him. My dad then goes down the street to gas up his car, and then leaves for work, leaving the plumber to do his job in the bathroom. My bathroom is just a toilet and vanity, with a door leading into a shared shower room that has another door leading into my dad's bathroom. So, while I was getting ready, there was only one door between the plumber and I. I guess he figured out that there was a lady in the house due to my hair dryer. Next thing I know, my bedroom door is opening and closing, and there's a very tall, very wide, very terrifying man with more legs than teeth locking my door from the inside behind him. He then walks 5 feet towards me and stops in front of my bathroom door. I freeze. He stands there, staring at me for the longest 30 seconds of my life. He hits me with the widest, untoothiest grin and literally looks me up and down multiple times. I hear the front door open and close, not knowing then that my dad had forgotten his wallet, and the plumber pivots on one foot in a twirly motion and unlocks my door and walks out. My dad runs in my room, asking if that guy had really just been in there, and goes to run after him, but the guy walked right to his truck and left without fixing our shower. My dad immediately calls the company we hired the plumber from and asks them to send someone else, not that guy. He tries to explain what happened to the manager. The manager proceeds to tell my dad it was our fault the man locked himself in the room with me because I didn't lock him out of my room in the first place. Sorry, I didn't know I needed to lock myself away in order to not be creeped on by a supposed professional. Just terrifying to think of what would have happened if my dad didn't forget his wallet. I'm sitting here shaking, on the verge of a panic attack, so I'll try and write this. I'm a country girl. I come from a small town and moved up to the large capital city in Australia to attend university at the start of the year. Being a broke-ass student that isn't getting parental support, I'm renting through my university in what is known as subsidized accommodation. Long story short, it's old units from random housing trust blocks that the local housing trust has given the university. This means I'm living with some creepy people. The guy downstairs, I know for a fact is an ex-con because he told me. And the guy across the halls from me is dealing in some serious drug shit and has police and detectives knocking on his door at all hours. I've been at this unit for about 9 months, and other than being slightly scared of my neighbors, I've not had any problems. Until now. Another guy lived across the hall from me. It's a 2-story unit block with 3 units in the top. One for me, one for the druggie, and one for this other guy. This other guy, who I learned is called Josh, is a large ethnic man, who I'd say is in his mid to late 20s. English is not his first language. I've run into him a few times while leaving and entering my unit, and he introduced himself, so I, being the friendly and naive country kid I am, greeted him back. Other than a few short greetings I've had with this man, the only major time I've had contact with him was when we were both at a bus stop and he started chatting to me. He asked what I was doing, and I said I was heading into the city to attend church. While not religious myself, I have a religious friend who had been begging me to attend church with her once. He said he wanted to come with me one day. I thought he was joking, so I laughed and said maybe one day. This was about 2 months ago now. I saw him a couple of days ago, and he asked me when I was going to take him to church. Feeling awkward, I said, I don't know, maybe one day, and bolted into my unit. I have been out all weekend, dog sitting for a university friend, and came home to find 2 notes pushed under my door. I've attached them. Good luck reading half of it because I had trouble as well. I don't know what to do. I'm fucking terrified right now. I called my friend, half laughing hysterically and half freaked out, and made her stay on the phone while I bolted down to the car, took out my small knife that I use for animal rescues, and ran back inside. I can't ring my mother because she would freak out and drop everything to make the 5-hour drive up to where I live, and she can't do that right now. She's working 5 days a week and looking after my terminally ill grandfather, and any other adults who I ring will straight away contact my mother. My friend urged me to go to the police, but while the letters are creepy as all hell, aren't actually threatening. Would the police do anything? How about it? Why don't you join me on this terrifying adventure on how to deal with a creeper?